If you've ever felt stuck, burnt out, or lost in the expectations of others, then this conversation will change the way you see yourself forever. In this podcast, Evolution of a Human, it's supposed to be my job to inspire you to make the changes you know you want to make, and maybe even give you a few hints. But instead, I'm going to let my guests do that. Learn from their stories and the obstacles that they've overcome to be who they are today. So I've got Bryan White with me today. He's a husband, father of three. He's the author of the upcoming book, Get Selfish, Fill Your Bucket First. He's a speaker and he's the host of the Thrive Chronicles podcast. Welcome. Thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure to connect with you.
So I'd like to talk about the book first. All right. So it's a message that I quite like, the idea of get selfish, but it often rubs people the wrong way if you talk to people about being selfish. So what led to that?
The book is a really personal goal and a really controversial idea that brewed over a really long period of time. It really came out of my own personal growth and something that I heard over and over and over as I was growing and setting new boundaries and developing myself and really coming out of people pleasing and over giving and letting people walk on top of me. Everyone used to say, Bryan, you're just being selfish. You're just thinking about yourself. And it hit me one day and it floored me. And I've never lost this thought of we are no good to anybody else unless we are good to ourselves first. We have to be selfish. To me, being selfish was setting a healthy boundary, telling someone no, saying, I can't give you that, I don't have the capacity, putting structures in place to look after myself. Because if I'm a burnt out, empty mess, and in my book, I explain it in the metaphorical sense of buckets. If our bucket is empty, depleted, rusted, broken, leaking, no good, or even if we feel like it's full, but it's toxic, it's muddy, it's disgusting, what good are we to anybody else? What good are we to ourselves? So my book got built on this journey that I walked through, starting from a philosophy that I also write about called The Man in the Mirror, about waking up one day and looking in the mirror and having no idea who the person looking back was. And worst of all, really, I'm going to say, hating what I saw looking back. It was a wake up call. It was a rock you to that core moment. But yet, it's a spark that comes from within at the same moment. All of a sudden, something in you brews up again and says, I want to know this person. Who is this? There's more to life than this. What am I doing? You start asking these questions, and it's scary. Oh my. There's a lot of people that avoid it and don't want to embrace that. But I found myself sitting there going, I need to know this person. I need to love this person. And I need to know that there's more to life. So from walking through the journey of transformation in myself and helping others walk through transformations of waking up to know there's so much more to life. There's dreams for us to chase. There's fires inside us. There's passions for us to erupt. There's people for us to love. There's people that love us back to let the world in and put ourselves out there and be excited about life. There's nothing more that I crave in life than the excitement and fire of life. I I know it might be an overused phrase, but the phrase of telling people that I'm really fired up over life is what more people should be embracing. Let's all get fired up about life. Let's all get that excitement back, that burning desire in us. Because I put it a little bit in a metaphorical sense as well, that they would not make mega yachts and they would not make, $800 purses for ladies, and they wouldn't make $500 pairs of shoes or all these crazy, ridiculous things out there. And they wouldn't make just these mind-bogglingly, outrageously priced, materialistic things that everybody tells you that it's a fallacy, it's a dream to ever have that. Who has mega yachts? Who has their own plane? Who does this? But guess what? If you really want those things, and if that's what does it for you can actually have those. That's the crazy part about life. From a very materialistic sense, you can have whatever it is you want in life. From a deep personal sense, you can chase whatever dream you want in life. But here's the secret to it. Before you can do any of that, before you can even begin to think about reaching those places or getting to that point of the crazy dreams that are out there, we have to know ourselves. We have to be good to ourselves, because when we are good to ourselves, then we can pour with abundance. That's the way I see it. So, in a roundabout way, if we all got a little selfish and embraced a power of self-love, then we might be a little bit of a healthier society. We might be healthier people. We'd have stronger boundaries. We'd have stronger relationships. We'd have stronger mindsets. We'd be okay with taking some personal time, because how often, I'm going to put this out to you, do you take enough personal time? And how often are you aware of your boundaries, mindsets, and take that time to be a little selfish for yourself?
All right, so I've done lots of work on this, so I can quite happily say that yeah, I do get a little bit selfish, and I have my own time every day. Um, One of the things that changed recently, I got into a really good routine over the Christmas holidays. So it was about 3, 4 weeks, and my girls changed school. So I live in Portugal. We moved here just under a year ago, and we put them straight into the international school because it's a soft landing. It's an English speaking school. They can make friends. We can all settle in before we make the hard jump and put them into the public school where they only speak Portuguese. So we had to wait an extra week or two for that to come through. So that's why we ended up with a bit of a longer break than what we were expecting. And everyone was sleeping in. So I had that first couple of hours every morning where I got to do my own thing without any distractions whatsoever. Now we've been at school for about a month, and my oldest starts school at 8 in the morning, which is a little bit earlier than she's ever started school. So all that disappeared. It took me 2 weeks to try and figure out what am I going to do. So my wife and I both work from home. So there's that constant crossing paths. Um, and when she wants to get on with the work, I'll be talking in the background. When I want to get on with work, she'll be talking in the background. So I'm like, all right, so there's no solid me time there. End of the day, I'm not good at getting things done. So I'm like, all right, well, what am I going to do? I've bitten the bullet, and I actually get myself up earlier, which I could never understand why my dad got up so early in the morning when I was growing up. I thought it was crazy, and now I completely get it because now that is my time. Now, the other part of that is the boundaries, right? So that is the harder part of working at home with my wife. Those boundaries of, no, no, I'm got my headphones on, I'm getting some work done. That's pretty much how I get that boundary reinforced. And she will lock herself in her office and get her work done. So yeah, the boundaries are the tough part. Learning to be able to say no when it actually
Learning to
has to be the thing.
learning to say no and to set a boundary, it can be one of the hardest things. From a
Mm,
person who will take someone who doesn't have, they've eroded all their boundaries. They've let it just completely go and everybody's just walked on them. That that can be almost one of the most challenging pieces because in
mm,
those moments is when people really start to use those words, you're being selfish, or why won't you do this anymore? Or, well, just give me an extra 20 minutes,
mm.
or I just need a little bit more of you. And all of a sudden, it's amazing how fast people change when you start to go, no, my time ends here, or you get this much of me, or this does not align with me, or when you are strong in what you want, how people choose to react is tough. Yet,
Mm.
the power it gives you back when you set a strong boundary and when you put yourself in priority, the power it gives you, the confidence and strength that you find in yourself. And as you do this more, it becomes easier. And the longer you do it, the easier it becomes. As you're saying, getting up in the morning. I'm sure the first morning you decided to get up early, you're kind of probably thinking to yourself, going, this is ridiculous. But a couple weeks in, you're like, oh, wait, you're setting that powerful. There's a lot to getting up early in the morning. There's
There is.
actually a huge amount to it. From you're showing up for yourself, you're setting a boundary, you're following through with a commitment, you're keeping a promise to yourself. Like for everybody out there, if you that's one thing you can do for yourself is get up 1 hour earlier in your day. Set your alarm, follow through, and actually get up that 1 hour earlier. You'd be surprised the mindset shift and all the little things that will come with it more than just, oh, I'm getting up an hour earlier.
Yeah, definitely. Uh, there's something that you said in there. Um, it's come up a couple of times at the start and just in that last section about you used to let people walk all over you. I, can I get some examples of how that was in your life and how it's changed and um, how it feels as well as the specific examples?
Absolutely. I used to be somebody who I used to call it I was a yes man. I always had this weird belief that saying no was wrong. So I called myself a yes man. I said yes to everything, whether it was extra work, whether it was going places that I had no interest in going, whether it was putting myself in an environment that was so far unaligned from my values, beliefs, standards, all of that, to spending time with toxic, awful people
Hmm.
that I allowed to influence me, to building really bad habits, and partaking in habits such as I got into a lot of drinking because everybody said, Brian, you should drink more. And I went, sure. Or Brian, you should do this. And I went, yeah. And I just had this belief that saying no was wrong, that saying no would upset somebody or that not doing what somebody else wanted was wrong, that I wanted to make everybody happy. And a truth that I had to swallow is you can't make everybody happy. It's not possible. And the more you try to make everybody happy, the more you're going to be freaking miserable. And that was the consequence of it. The more I just said yes, the more I just did everything everybody asked of me, I lost myself in that. I built bad habits. I eroded my boundaries. I put myself in really poor situations. Um, I hurt a lot of people because, the people that I cared about would try to tell me something, and someone else would ask me to go do something that was completely different, and I would say yes to them. I would jump to the next opportunity. It really makes you a chaotic person. It makes you a very well, I don't want to say it makes you an unreliable person, but you can easily become a very unreliable, unfocused, um, un just unwilling to do what you need to do kind of person. You do what everybody else needs. You fly by the seat of your pants, and you just, I don't know. I found myself going down these rabbit holes of toxic relationships, poor behavior. Um, like I said, I got into drinking because that's what a friend group was all doing. And they said, Bryan, you should just drink more. That made life better. And I went, that's what they want me to do. Sure. Um, I neglected priorities that had been a big part of my life because I allowed people into my life that didn't align with me. I guess it really becomes a factor of if you allow everybody else to tell you how to live your life, then that's what's going to happen. You're going to live somebody else's life somewhere else doing God knows what.
Hmm.
If you do not take control of your life and make your decisions and stand in your values, your pillars, your morals, and accept that sometimes I have to say no, sometimes I have to do what is best for me, that's the only way you're going to truly live your best life. The only way you're going to live in your true path. And it was a weird thing that I see now that I didn't see then. When you are truly walking in your path, things kind of line up, or I almost call them these deja vu moments. You feel like you've been in these moments. I believe kind of in what I'll call a higher power, universal power, that there's something out there, whether you want to call it a god or whatever you believe in. I believe there's a higher universal power that has a path and a design for us. We are all meant to be doing something. And when you are walking within that path, you will see flashes of being on the right track. You will get inklings of, I'm doing the right thing. You'll get these thoughts, beliefs. You'll get moments where it all makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't make sense at all. You get these when you are not walking within your path and you're way out there, a lot of bad things happen. You feel the negative happening. You let this feeling and these bad things happen way more. I don't know. It's this balancing act, you could call it. When you're walking in your path, I believe more bad things are avoided in your path. The good things outweigh the bad. When you're not walking your path, the bad things outweigh the good. So if you're in a space in your life and bad thing after bad thing after bad thing after bad thing, and you just say, oh, I have such bad luck, maybe look at where you're walking in your life. Maybe you need to tip your scale and you're not on the right path because the moment you're walking the right path, and through my life, I've seen this time and time again, hand over fist, when I am within my authentic, true, honored self, good things happen.
Hmm. Everything seems to line up, right?
Absolutely.
Now, can I ask what the turning point was for you? Was there a day or was there an event that it was like, holy crap, this is it? And that was the pivot point? Or was it over the course of days, weeks, months?
There was a major pivot point, but I think a lot of it has been over days, weeks, months, years. But as I spoke about in the beginning there, the pivotal moment was waking up and looking in the mirror and hating what I saw back, having no
Mm.
idea who it was. That was the moment. That was like the holy by gollies, something's wrong. And it's been through trial and error, learning and being open and allowing myself to become more open and more curious that I just keep embracing life. So I can't say that other than that moment that there's been this catastrophic eye-opening experience. There's ever been this like monumental life explosion. I truly believe it was that moment,
Okay.
looking in the mirror and going, "Holy crap, who is this guy?"
What led up to that moment? What was happening in your life then?
A lot of negative experiences, a lot of I was going through a relationship change. My first marriage was just a complete mess, and now I know there was many reasons it was a mess because I was a mess, but I was bouncing from job to job. I was unable to maintain a healthy relationship. The relationship, I was not a present parent. I'm glad. I don't want to say that I'm glad about any of it, but I am glad that my kids were so young at that point that I was able to correct it then. If I was
Yeah.
still in that space and my kids were as old as they were now and I was unpres un unpresent for that long, I'd be devastated. I'm even devastated that I was unpresent, unavailable, and not mentally there for the time that I was. But I'm glad it was only those couple years because I can accept that and move on and be the best parent I can be, the most present parent I can be. But yeah, I was just, say a hot mess,
Hmm.
failing relationship, failing jobs, just putting myself in every situation that was unhealthy, going down roads of poor behavior. And you almost get into this shield, I'm going to call it. I put on a shield that I was the best thing since sliced cheese. I knew everything. I was, I could, I really hid outwardly of the pain I was feeling inwardly. And I had to come to that moment of like, I'm not okay. And it
Mm.
wasn't until you come to that moment of realization, that hard kick in the face, willing that you're going to accept and take off that shield, take off that mask, and look at yourself fully and go, I'm not okay. Look at my life around me. What the hell?
Yeah. I often talk about the masks we wear or the labels we wear and uh, the mask of being the one or, you know, the kingpin or whatever you want to call it. It's a really powerful mask and when you're wearing it, it's often hard to see that you're wearing it.
Well, and it's
If
a
you
big
feel
cover
rotten
up because
inside.
you don't want the outer world to see the pain you're in. You don't want the outer
Mhm.
world to see what a hot mess your relationship is and how unavailable you are to your kids. You don't want the outer world to know that you're 2 days away from being fired from your job. You you want to hide all of that. That's you have heaven forbid the world see that you are that much of a mess. Here's a secret I want to share though.
Please.
Sometimes showing the world what a mess you really are does two things. One, when you become vulnerable, it really shows who's in your court and there to support you. And when you become vulnerable to the world, it shows you the real, shows you how real your world is. In the aspect of when you are allow yourself to be vulnerable, you can take accountability for everything that's gone on. It is a huge starting point. Just become vulnerable and let it in. It's gonna suck. It's going to suck. Embrace that suck. It's going to hurt and it's ugly and it's nasty and it's no fun and there's nothing nice about it, but it needs to be done.
Except that it's genuine. It's the only nice thing about it, right?
Absolutely.
And that it is
Absolutely.
the path to moving forward, genuinely
Yeah.
moving forward. Absolutely. So you said that it was a lot of trial and error to get yourself on this path that feels more good than bad. That's the path that you're supposed to be on. What sort of things did you try? What paths did you go down? What tools did you try? What worked? What didn't work?
I love this part of it because I call it trial and error the education phase. I truly believe, and I talk about this hugely in my book, that everything's broken down into stages. You first have to have like your self-acceptance stage and you go through the messy and you really embrace yourself. But then you have to move into a curious and education space. And this part is a bit of a roller coaster because you have to be willing to find mentors, find coaches, read books, dive into podcasts, try things. Whatever it is, try it because it might go well and it might fail. And there's a lot of times it's going to fail. It's not a bad fail. It's a learning fail. It's an education. It's a building block. And by God, it's like I had some coaches that I learned from, but then I found out didn't align or weren't really quite connected as I thought they were. Um, I tried some jobs where I went, this is a great learning opportunity, but they were not the right thing, or they were not my strong attributes and what I was really good at. But I learned from them. Um, I really had to work on what were my goals and my outcomes that I wanted. And it all just became, like you said, trial and error. What worked? What didn't work? What can I learn? What can I grow into? What's going to give me opportunities? What doors can I open? What doors can I reopen that I thought were closed? And just be curious. I think that's where we have to start and develop our curiosity. Let the spark that's in you flame it. Start to grow that flame a little bit. You need to start getting the little spark to a little flame to a little fire. And it's all going to come from trying. Get muddy, jump into things, see where they take you, try new experiences, see what you like, see what you don't like, see what aligns with you, what you now know does not align with you, and just do it. Don't be let break free from the fear, break past the mindsets that are stopping you and just do it. Because one of two things is going to happen. It's going to go really good or it's going to go really bad. Both you're going to learn from, and they're going to take you to where you're meant to go. As we kind of said before, I really believe everything happens for a reason. Everything is walking you down the path you're supposed to walk. The good, the bad, the ugly, the fun, the hard, the easy, all of it is walking you down the path you are meant to go down. It's just kind of navigating. How can we make this, I don't want to say as easy as possible, but how can we avoid and learn to not get kicked in the face too much?
Yeah, I was going to say, how can we make it the least painful as possible?
Yeah, it's are we jumping out of the plane to go skydiving with a parachute, or are we just jumping before we get our parachute? There's all these things we get to learn as we go, and all these fun ways that we get to explore life that you either learn the hard way, which guilty of. I've learned a lot of my things the hard way. And over time, you start to learn them less the hard way. But just be willing to learn. It's a huge factor of your growth. It's a huge portion of the journey. Open your mind, get curious, fan the flame, because you got to start growing it. If you want your inferno
Mm.
and you want that bonfire, that Burning Man style of inferno, you better start flaming that.
Yeah. I think that curiosity is something that unfortunately we lose quite quickly these days. It's so much pressure, even as on teenagers, to figure out what you want to do. Like school's coming to an end. What are you going to do for the rest of your life? And there's that pressure of, oh, well, I kind of like this, but I kind of like that. But then you're pushed into whatever has more status or whatever your values, whatever your parents' values align to. And you get pushed down that path. And then we all get stuck on that merry-go-round, right? And once you're on it, it's hard to get off. And yeah, that curiosity kind of dies a slow death.
The curiosity is almost driven out of us now.
Mm.
You look at how many people now just stick with one job for 40 some odd years and they're miserable. They hate it. And
Yeah.
everybody around them can tell because they're the most miserable person you've ever met. But it's because that person let everything die. They
Mm.
just sat down and went, this is what it is. The curiosity
Yeah,
died. The spark went out. They let it die. And I'm gonna blatantly say I feel sorry for those people. I feel really
absolutely.
bad for those people because I truly hope that when I'm 85, 90, I'm still doing wild, fun things and my spark and fire is alive because there's nothing more powerful in our life than curiosity. I want to be 90 and still curious about life.
Absolutely. So I think uh, the opening part of a question, like what if, fill in the blank, is a massive drive for me. So it can be used in a negative and a positive, so a toward or away from. And one of the reasons why my wife and I completely shut down our business, sold everything, and moved to the family to pretty much the furthest point in the world that we could was because of the question, what if? What if we move to Portugal? Holy crap, yes, let's find out. But so that was the thing that was pulling us forward, right? The thing that was pushing me away, that made me leave, was we had the most gorgeous life. All right. So we had a successful business. Our kids were in private school. We had beautiful cars, beautiful house, all of that sort of thing. And I had a friend, still have a friend, and she's a chiropractor in the same town that I was. And I could see what my life looks like 10 years down the road. And I'm like, it's really, really nice. But if that's the jump from here to there, then there's, all right, the holidays get nicer. The house might get a little bit nicer, but I know that when I hit 80 years old or so, if I look back and I'm still doing the same thing, and if I've lived in the same town from here to there, I'm going to look back and go, what if I had actually done something else? And I didn't want to feel that regret. So that curiosity's there. The whole what if question, I think, is a really powerful one for people to ask. Um, but I think a lot of people use the question in a fearful way. What if it all fails? What if I fall flat on my face? Which is part of
I
the
have to,
journey.
I really got to throw two things in here
Please.
because I'm loving this. One, you have to ask yourself the question and put yourself in your 80-year-old self of would I regret if I didn't do this? At 80 years old, would I regret if I didn't do this now? And two, it's that what if has to be placed into the positive mindset because what ifs are always going to be what can propel you forward. The
Hmm.
moment you start putting that what if into a negative spiral, it's going to end you. It's going to paralyze you. That what if it's so dangerous. I want to make this very clear
Yeah,
to people. The moment you start playing that what if game and you let it go into a negative spiral, it's the most dangerous, scary question ever. It will literally throw you into a spiral so dark that you might not know how to come out of it.
absolutely. To counteract that, all right, so Tim Ferriss, one of my favorite authors, his podcast is spectacular. I remember, I think it was one of his books, he talks about fear casting. And it's kind of the what if question done in the negative way. And it's, all right, I'm going to do this thing. What is the worst possible outcome here? I fall flat in my face, go bankrupt, all my friends disown me, everything gets taken away. Say that's the worst case. You go, all right, well, if that's the worst case, how bad is it? All right, that's pretty bad. But what can I do if that all came to pass? What would I do? All right, so you've got a strategy for if it happens. And before that happens, it's all right, what can I do? If I'm going to do this thing, what can I do to make that, if not impossible, the lowest likelihood possible? Um, but again, that still comes from a positive mindset. If you're in a dark, dark mood, that game doesn't work. It, yeah, I've told a client before, like he's bipolar, so any big life decisions, you can't make them when you're feeling down. You're not allowed to. You're allowed to choose. Am I going to watch this movie or this movie? I'm going to have salad or am I going to have chips for dinner? Like small stuff. If it comes to, all right, anything big, anything that might affect tomorrow or other people, it's like, no, you got to wait till you're in a good mood. You don't get to make those decisions. That's got to be a good mood question.
There's a lot of power to that. I really like that because I think that's the self-awareness aspect that a
Mm.
lot of us need to. become stronger in. That self-awareness of what mindset am I in? What mood am I in? Because any of us, there's even myself, I'm gonna have days where I feel like crap and I just am not in the right space to give someone my best,
Mm.
to show up how I want to show up. And I have to be aware that if someone came to me with, Bryan, do you want to go out to this party? Do you want to go do all these fun things? And I'm just like not feeling good or not in a good place, then I have to have that ability to say, not today. It has nothing to do with them. And you're not saying no because you don't want to. Any other day, maybe that would be a really cool experience. But you know that if you went there in that space that you're in, how are you going to affect everybody else around you?
Yeah.
Your miserable mood that you're feeling in that moment will affect everybody else. So that self-awareness to go, I'm not in a good place today. Maybe we'll try this another time when I know I'm not going to affect everybody else. Even break it down, I'll break it down to with me and my wife now. We've become very good at being self-aware of where we're at, what we're feeling, and being able to communicate that because if I wake up and I just feel gross or something's not functioning, instead of snapping at her and chewing her head off and being a real jerk, I have to be self-aware to look at her and go, honey, I don't feel great today. This is where I'm at. And let's be aware that I might be a little shorter than, and I don't mean it. I'm not being a jerk, but this is just where I'm at right now. And many times when she tells me, this is where I'm at, honey, you know, I'm struggling with this, it allows me to work together better. So I guess it's this giant, I'm wrapping it around as I've gone down a rabbit trails here, just about self-awareness and knowing where your mindset is, how you're feeling, and allowing that to control your decisions.
Mm. Absolutely. I think they're both good examples of, especially the party one. Like if you make a decision from a negative space, how it would that path that you choose from that negative mood, let's call it, tends to be a negative path. Everything that happens as a result of that decision tends to be tainted by that turning point. And having that communication with your wife kind of mutes any of the, or a lot of the possible negatives from going down there. But at least you're both aware of it. And
Absolutely.
awareness is important.
Awareness is it's a huge I don't even I'm trying to figure out how to even like explain to people how big and how important really developing your awareness is. The awareness of yourself, the awareness of the people around you, awareness of your vocabulary, your body language, awareness of how you present yourself. And that's a whole rabbit trail in itself. We can talk about inwardly, but how you present yourself outwardly, that's a whole thing in itself. But I just think awareness, it's a huge part of the learning process. From the person that is looking in the mirror, no idea who they are, what's going on in the dark space, I think one of the core pillars of your learning journey will be to develop really strong awareness.
Mm, 100%. Now, someone watching this, the people watching this, if you want to leave them with any Final thoughts? Anything in particular to consider? What would that be?
I want people to embrace and wake up to life. We are destined for so much more than I think our minds can understand. Life is meant to be lived. We are meant to be curious. We're meant to be excited. We're meant to be fired up with life. Chase our dreams, reignite our dreams, discover who we are on the inside. If the greatest thing that I could ever help somebody do is to wake up and be able to look in the mirror and say, I love the person looking back. I'm excited about the person looking back. Look at where we're going and help them take their life from surviving to completely thriving. That is my greatest achievement in life. And I want people out there to know, and I want people to understand that it is okay to be where you are. It is not okay to stay where you are. Let's take life to the next level. Let's try new things. Let's jump out of planes and go skydiving together. Let's do wild, fun, exciting things. Embrace the journey that is life. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be messy. But let that fire turn into an inferno. There's nothing better that we can ever do. And I just want people to know that life is to be lived fully, authentically, embraced, wholeheartedly loved.
Beautiful. Now, I will link to all of your socials. Is there anywhere in particular that you would like people to come and find you?
If people want to come join the journey of the Thriving Life Chronicles onto our Facebook community page, you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, across multiple social media platforms. Come check us out, come join the journey, come find some tools, and join podcasts just like this one here today, because a conversation is a starting point of igniting a journey. A conversation is a starting point that might just open a new door.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining me today, Bryan.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening or watching. Make sure you subscribe, and I'd love it if you left a review. Any links that we might have mentioned through the show are right here in the show notes. Now, as always, be open to change. It's coming for you anyway. Face your fears instead of suppressing them. And finally, say yes to more things than you say no to. Now, if you want to jump across on Instagram, that's where you'll find out all the ways that you can work with me.